Hello, and welcome back to our Programming Basics tutorial series. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at classes and functions and how to implement them into your program. Let's get to it. In object-oriented programming, a class is basically a blueprint for creating objects. So what I mean by that is, let's say we are developing a game, and we want to have some enemy behavior. Well, we might want to create a class called enemy behavior. Right? And then inside of this class we can have some variables defining like the enemy speed, the enemy, health, and all that kind of stuff. This is a very rough template of what an enemy behavior class might look like. We have enemy health, we have enemy armor, and we have enemy ammo. We have 4 functions: void charge, attack, block, and retreat. These 4 functions aren't doing anything yet, but the basic gist is that they might be populated at some point, and each function has to do with a specific task. For all intents and purposes of this tutorial though, I've gone ahead and renamed the class tutorial class. Let's go ahead and actually create a function inside of the class. So a function can be basically any of the variable types that we looked at in the last episode. They can be int, let's call it do some stuff, right? They can be integers, they can be booleans, they can be strings, and they can also be void. Now, a function has to always return some sort of value, except for this void one. So if I, for example, have an integer here as my function type, or my function variable type, and I pass in an integer, let's say I would have to return something. I could return I, or I could return like I plus 2, whatever. But I would have to return some sort of value. I could go ahead and return 0. Let's go ahead and populate the class with a couple of functions. So I'm going to create a function, a void function, called say hello. Right, and this function is basically just gonna console.writeLine. I use writeLine and not just write because I want to write lines. And let's say hello. Now if we actually run this, we're gonna encounter a bit of a problem. And the problem is that this code never gets executed. So let's fix that. We need to do 2 things here. First of all, we need to make an instance of this tutorial class inside of our program class. So let's go ahead and do that. The way we do that is we use the static keyword. Always use the static keyword if you're creating objects inside of the program class. Don't ask me why, that's just how it's done. So after the static keyword, we're going to reference what class we're actually going to make an instance of. In this case, we're going to make an instance of the tutorial class. So I'm going to go tutorial class. Let's just call it tutorial class. This is going to be equal to new instance of the tutorial class. In here, I can now call the tutorial class. But notice how we don't actually get the say hello function in the drop down menu. Now why is that, you might say? Well, because we didn't specify whether it's private or public. Function accessibility will default to private, so we actually need to specify that this is a public function so that it can be viewed outside of the current class. So now, if we put in the period again, now we get the say hello function here. We can call that function, and now the program should say hello. And it does, hello. Now you don't need a separate class for every single one of your functions. You can have multiple functions inside of a class. I can have another function here. We're going to go public void again. We're going to say goodbye. And I can console.writeLine goodbye. Now we can call the same class here. We need to change this function name to goodbye. We can see that it says goodbye. And what have we done now? We created a class. We created 2 functions inside of the class. The class name is tutorial class, and the functions are saying hello and goodbye. Up here we've created a new instance of the tutorial class. However, you don't have to necessarily do this. You can, if you want to, have all your functions inside of the program class. I'm gonna get rid of this tutorial class. And let's see if this works. Well, it says goodbye, but let's change this to say hello to check if it actually works. That sir is a problem. Now you might be scratching your head and going, wait a minute, these two functions do exactly the same. And if you're one of those people, congratulations, because they do exactly the same thing. They both output to the console and they both write a line. So why do we have two separate functions? Is there any way to condense these functions into one? And as a matter of fact, yes there is. I'm going to say goodbye to the say goodbye function. Goodbye, we don't need you anymore. I'm not going to modify this function a little bit. It's not going to be named say hello, it's going to be named say something, for lack of a better name. We're going to pass in an argument here. An argument is basically a temporary variable that is stored inside of this function, that the function does something with, and then it outputs something related to this variable. So in this case, we want a string, right? I'm going to call it something. And instead of writing hello to the console, we're going to write that string something. Now we can call our tutorial class up here as normal. We can say something, and inside these parentheses, we can specify what to say. So we can say derp, because why not? So now it'll say derp. So we've condensed basically these two functions that were here into one function, which says something. It takes in a parameter and it spews it out into the console. This is basically a very roundabout way of just doing the console.writeLine. I just wanted to show you guys that you can do this. You can have one function that says something, and we can call the exact same function again, but now we can say something else. So we can say, for example, soda, soda, and now it says first derp and then soda. So that concludes part 2 of our Programming Basics tutorial series. If you learned anything, that was my goal all along. If you didn't learn anything, please say so in the comments down below. If there's something in here that you don't understand, please say so too, because I would be happy to help. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you want to subscribe, do that. Please hit the bell icon next to the subscribe button so you'll be notified when I publish another video. And as always, happy coding!